California. Jonas from California, okay, and he is here as a guest. Okay, he's not an official member of the Masterclass. He's in the level of higher level.
Unofficial.
But since he's here, we might as well put him to work. Okay, that's what we thought. Okay,
he invited me for next week, and I came this week. So I wanted to meet all of you. So.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, can you tell us in 5 sentences where you come from and what's your bonsai experience and etc.
Yeah, I live on a small island in the San Francisco Bay. I grew up there, and I've been growing bonsai for 32 years now. Professionally for the last 10 years. It was a hobby 20 years before that. My expertise, I don't see it anywhere in the garden, is growing black pines from scratch. But I've worked with a Boon M part is my main teacher, and I've been to Japan many times over the years.
I see.
He was the first person, he was the second American to finish a 5-year apprenticeship in Japan. Kathy Shane was 1. Boon was number 2, but he was one of the first people that popularized contemporary Japanese techniques all over the country.
Yeah.
That's his big footnote.
That's true, and he did that very early.
Yeah.
And when in the late 90s I started on the internet and started to travel America, there was always the big fight between the boonies. The boonies are the
SOBs, the students of Boon.
The followers of Boon, and there was always some follower somewhere in the group, and they always would think it's their duty to defend Boon. I usually did not mention the name, but I told everybody very clearly that I hate to see all the trees done in the same manner. It's not wrong, it's okay, but that's not an art. If it's an art, every tree looks different, okay? And you can't, by the way, it can't look like a tree. And that was so terribly bad that everybody, all the Buddhists really, really hated me. And on the internet they gave me all these shitstorms, okay? And you know what? I thank you for that, because every time I wrote something at that time, I had to be very careful, because whatever I write, they will tear it to pieces. They will crucify me, they will put it on fire. Okay, very careful what I said, also the responses. So, and then they could, boom, they think, oh, it's exploded. But then I already knew, and so you have formed my thinking. And I'm more and more clear and clear and clear, because I knew I had to be, because the Boonies will never understand me, but the others will understand. At that time, they listened to the Boonies. And the Boonies are not as big anymore, but the Boonies used to be strong. And they would defend the Japanese way. And I would say, Japanese, well, that's only one way. There's so many. I still say that, but I don't get crucified anymore.
This is actually a very fair representation. I would say that almost exactly.
Okay, did I something wrong?
No, I would not have changed anything. That's right on.
Well, anyway, it was, it's fun. It was annoying, I tell you. I had some sleepless nights, but really, looking back, it was great. 4 weeks ago, Benedict was slaughtered my Scots pine, and then we had the shitstorm again. One guy wrote, "It's like the good old times." Okay. So as you realize, even though you're Boonie, you're accepted here, and I know you have different opinions, and you can say so. On my trees, you please do what I say, right? In general. But you can have different opinions, especially you can have and you should have your own taste. So nobody is asked to always follow what would Walter Pall do. Yeah, in case of that, if you don't know, you better think what would Walter say. That's a good idea. However, if you have no doubts, if you know this is where the branch goes, you just do it. And then I look at it and say, oh, I wouldn't have done that, but it looks kind of okay. So you see, that's the way I do it.
Well, so that reminds me of the second time we met. So the first time I met Walter was 25, 30 years ago at Boone's Garden. And that was a fun trip. That would have been in the late 90s, somewhere in the late 90s. The second time I met Walter, and I don't know if he remembers this, was in 2015 at the Artisans Cup. And Walter was one of the judges at Ryan's show of the Artisans Cup. And I had a hornbeam in the show and a little black pine I'd grown from seed. Walter was sitting on the cement after the show, just watching everyone unpack, load up the cars. And I was walking by with my little tree. And he just called out to me, hey, like he didn't know my name. He's like, come here. And so I walk over there, and he proceeded to tell me every single thing that was wrong with the tree. And then you told me how much it was worth, and it was a good job, and then you kind of flushed me along. I'm not sure I said a word. I said thank you, I think. But like, I didn't even ask you. I literally just minded my own business. Go, hey, come here. And so that was the second time I met Walter.
That sounds like a fair representation.
Yeah. That may not be fair, that one. I don't know. That's how I remember it.
Okay, so I have a question
Yeah.
for you. Walter said that he wants this tree to look refined,
Yeah.
but he also wants it to look wild and not too refined.
Well, that sounds fantastic.
So how do you do that, Jonas?
That's where technique comes in.
Okay.
And there can be the style of bonsai, whether traditional or Japanese or naturalistic or you name it.
Yeah.
There's high level technique and low level technique for all those different approaches.
Okay.
And so the trick is, how do you find a technique that's going to deliver the results you want within the style from
That
within
equals.
which you're working?
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So, what does...
So what
What does that mean?
Exactly.
Show us.
That's my first question for you is, what does it mean? So, one of my big thoughts about bonsai is, if you just dig a tree up and put it in a pot and put it in a show, you get the Golden Shovel Award. It says nothing about our role in the process. I like it when trees reveal the relationship between the person and the tree. If it's all artificial, it's too much person. There's not enough tree or not enough nature there. That's no fun. And if it's all just nature, then all we are miniaturists. And there's no art whatsoever. And so to answer the question about the technique is, what is Walter's idea about how does a tree look different 5 years out of the ground or 25 years out of the ground? Whatever technique gets you there would kind of be how I would approach something like this.
Okay.
Okay.
Way too many words.
So how would you approach it? So can you walk us through it? What would you?
Well, how I think about it.
Yeah. Because I know I've heard how he thinks about it.
Well, so-
I want to hear how you think about it.
I start from super high elevation. I walk around the tree and I think this has an absolutely fantastic trunk. It's got a great line.
Yeah.
And I think the front is almost absolutely perfect. I don't know that I'd change anything there. But there are other details, like right here looks absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
But the tree is very straight. And so one of the first things I looked at is, would it be interesting, I put a little block, I think, right there.
Whoops, you
Would
just
it,
lost
well,
me.
I meant to get rid of it.
Okay.
Would it look more interesting if the tree had some movement? And so a lot of trees
Yes.
are really straight up and down. And so I was just, one idea I had to float around it is, would I like it if the tree actually, if the trunk had some movement as opposed to going straight up?
It's better.
Because not all trees that go happen to go straight up.
Did you like that one?
They usually travel somewhere
Yeah,
else.
we just put a block in underneath here.
Yeah, and you can either display it like that
No,
and
no,
or
that's
set
not-
something. It's not a whole lot, it's just a little bit, just to suggest the
2.5
movement.
inches.
Yeah,
And that's it. Yeah, that's it.
There.
somewhere in that ballpark.
It's done, fine.
So that was one thing I noticed. When I looked from the front, the first thing I noticed is the tree has almost no depth. It's a two-dimensional tree.
Yeah.
I like that this gives it depth, but I would love if I had some green behind that to show off the best part of the tree.
Okay.
And that's a bias I have, which is I like trees that have good depth.
Nice.
And I like it when there's green behind some of the best features of the tree, which is in this area. But when I walk around the back and look at it that way, what I noticed is, another question was, has this tree ever moved, or is the sun always right here? It looks like the tree doesn't get as much sun on this side.
No.
No,
The truth is, for 20 years, this was the front. They planted it so in the pot so that this was the front because of this
Because of
nice
that part
curve,
right there,
and
yeah.
the deadwood was right on the back. And then I found a way of putting it, and the roots are all here. So the tree was leaning back, very in an awkward position. And now I put it like this on this strange stone in a strange position. And now you see this is empty, and I start filling this in because it was empty because that was the front. Okay, but you're right. Yeah, I would love more depth, but that's easy. You don't cut these. You just pull them in, and in 5 years they will be here. Okay, so we will create some depth. Okay, but the overall design is really okay. It looks nice already. I mean, most people
no big
say,
changes to the overall design.
Take off these wires, but don't. That's the last thing we do to see whether they hold it. Maybe we have to put them on. There's a reason why these wires are here.
Yeah.
And because the tree may fall off. So anyway,
It's a good reason to keep the wires.
yeah. So anyway, I think this is too dense here. So we may want to make 3 crowns. 1, 2, 3. If we have 2 crowns, is it allowed? Well, is it allowed to put the tree? Nothing is allowed here. So this tree is full free. You can do anything. So, but it would look better if this were open, and if you couldn't see into this. So
that was my big open question. What it looks like is the way the branches are moved, the tree looks like it was wired a very, very long time ago, and it has grown kind of bigger and bigger on the top along there. And so I agree. What I was looking at is currently that height, apex based on height, is way back here, but it looks like it was designed as if the front was up there. So I was trying to decide where should the top be, how much should we see, and is that informed by if we change the angle?
By the way, I like
so that's the unsolved bit.
No sharp triangles, always round.
Yeah.
And this could be the top of this, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But something we have, I'm not worried about this so much, but more about this. I want to see you just
Because that's really
to
interesting.
see the structure, right? So maybe we don't cut this off, we just gin it. I start with very thin gin, which is unusual, but if you don't like it, we can afterwards. So we just take off the bark here. Then we take out a few of those, which are hindering us from seeing the thing. And then we see that there is another 1 crown, 2 crown, not here. So we will lighten this bird's nest up by cutting out some branches. And then whatever is left, we don't have to wire everything, but we somehow edit this. Maybe by cutting, but sometimes with guy wires, and sometimes with wiring in a nice way. This ugly wiring is typically for me. I want to do a job of general design, and I don't care what this looks like, because I'm not selling trees, I'm not showing trees, this is just for me. And the wire has to do the job, and I have to take off the thicker wire rather than the thinner one. And my wiring is not very careful because I'm very quick. Okay, and that's what it looks like. But that doesn't matter at all. All that matters is what will this look like in 20 years. So I have formed this tree, and then I bend them, and I have this habit of over-bending, meaning if I want this branch to bend, I bend it more so it looks contrived, because when I take off the wire, it goes back anyway. So anyway, now you have the pleasure of taking off all this wire on the expense of wiring again, maybe. I don't know whether that holds. I am not very experienced with this Tsuga, because Tsugas normally don't like wiring, by the way. They hate wiring.
They're very snappy.
They're very snappy, and they so anyway. I think basically we take off all the wire. That's just cut it off or wind it off, and then we start editing, cutting out a few things like come over here. Typically this stands up in there, or we cut this out, and here is something too close, so that you can see through this. Many people are very happy at this stage to have this wonderful filled tree, and now finally I have these clouds here. And I say, okay, cut out 50%, meaning destroy the clouds. Really?
In this case, is 50 what your target would be? Or
at least 50.
So 50.
Minimum 50. So why is that? Because it looks like a broccoli. You have to de-broccolize it. De-broccolization. They think, Walter, are you for real? Yes, I mean it. And then I show them, I do it. I very quickly I cut this out. It looks a lot better. Why is that? Because all of a sudden you see the structure. But why does the tree look better? Because everybody thinks with the clouds it looks better. No, with the clouds it looks like a bonsai. But I want it to look like.
So here's the last question. What is different between a tree 10 years in training or 25 years in training if you keep cutting back all the young branches?
I don't cut back all.
Meaning if you're cutting off 50%, how do you represent age in branches, or do the branches always look young since you're always cutting so much?
Well, they will.
That's one of my bigger questions.
I don't cut them totally. I cut them back. So one of this branch I will cut off many so that there on very little is left, and that's an old branch.
Like transparent.
It'll stay old.
Well, I'll see when I go to the garden, like look at some of the older trees.
You can see some of the old. This is, by the way, it's only in my training since 3 years. So this is only the start.
Yeah, this looks like.
So anyway, the aim is to make it look like a very ancient old tree, which happened to look nice, but it shouldn't be visible that somebody tried hard to make it look nice. You should actually think, oh, nature does a wonderful job. So what you're trying to do is to do something so that people who don't know what's happening here think, oh, you see, nature is the best artist. If you succeed, then you have done what I want to do. Does that make some sense? Well, you also said some things which don't make sense to me, so I can throw that back.
Well, that's perfectly parallel with what I would have expected.
See, this is
out
the
of
kind of
your
person I really want to have the shit summed up like that. So you see, I have a lot of training with that. Kann überhaupt nicht reden. No, it doesn't move at all. So that's fine.
So far, so good.
So far, so good. Okay, and now the other one.
This is the scarier one.
Yeah, that's okay.
Bisschen kommt er, aber
Und? Bleib stehen?
bleibt schon.
Okay, it's your responsibility. Okay, and so another picture again of this tree without the wire. Looks a lot better.
Nobody sneeze.
You can go close to the tree so that we can see you and the tree.
All right.
Okay, you are here to interview me, and now we are interviewing you. What exactly did you do here and why? And can you tell us about your experience here?
The homework assignment for this tree was to essentially thin it out. It's a beautiful tree that's been a beautiful tree for a very long time, and it hadn't been worked on lately, so it had grown very full. So the idea was to thin it out. What I'd wanted to accomplish was bring it up a little bit, and so we've tilted it a little bit over to the side. It was very straight up before, now it's moving over to the side a little bit. And the other thing was the tree was very two-dimensional and flat, and so now we have filled in the entire back area, and ideally it'll continue to grow in the back to provide more depth behind the interesting deadwood.
Okay.
The rest is mostly thinning it out and just positioning things into a rough silhouette. Ideally over time, as it fills in, then we can do much more interesting cut back to give it a less boring shape. This is kind of the intermediate.
It's not boring.
zone.
Okay, you call it boring, that's fine.
We'll call it simplistic.
Simplistic,
Yeah. And I think over time it'll get more interesting.
Okay. This, of course, is a very special tree for many reasons. It's a very old tree. It could well be 300 years or older. It's an extreme rarity. It's a rice corn variety of the Tsuga diversifolia, the smallest of ever leaves, okay, as big as a rice corn or as small as a rice corn. Very, very rare. Very expensive normally, unaffordable. This was affordable because the roots were in the total wrong place, and the solution was this very strange stone, which is very unique, makes this extremely unique. I think it works well.
Yeah.
And by the way, if you turn this tree around, it looks pretty good from the other side. That used to be the front. Because wasn't with these roots, it was only possible to place it in the pot in an awkward way. Anyway, we have now found a solution, and I think I'm very happy with this. I have done some landscaping here, and that will continue to grow, and that's okay. What normally you would call a weed, I'll let happen here somehow.
Walter, it's a very unusual container and a very interesting planting angle for this spectacular tree. How did that change over time? What is the original idea for this, and how has that changed over time with this container?
Well, this is a tree that's about 300 years or something like that, growing in the Japanese Alps in the Northern Ireland. And a Japanese master collected that right there and tried to plant it in a bonsai pot. And that was very difficult because it was laying on the ground where he found it, and the roots were so that you could not really put it in a pot because the roots were up here. So you could not plant it in the pot. So it was flat in the pot, looked kind of awkward. So you had to look at it from above in order to admire it. And this is why he got rid of it. So he sold it to Europe, and then somehow it came into my hands, and I had worked with this kind of slabs. I don't call them slabs anymore. A slab is a flat thing. This is a stone. Okay, but this was a slab before. I just put it upright, and then somehow fixed it, and dared to wire the tree in there, and here it sits as if it had always grown like that, and all of a sudden you can see what before was not seen, and now the roots don't bother. The roots are still here, but they don't bother us anymore, and this was my idea. I think that's pretty unique. I'm very happy. I'm sort of kind of happy that I really did that, and that makes this tree even more unique. And of course, it's totally unorthodox, but I think from a practical point of view, it was obviously the right thing. And now, of course, the question is, how do we make this shine? And this was very, very dense, overgrown on purpose before that. And when I asked you to do that, I was kind of thinking, well, I have to tell this person to not please do this over refinement, but please, it's my tree, do my natural style.
So that's very interesting. So Jonas, what were some of the challenges of, I see you have put a block under the one side of the tree. Did you do that to create more movement, or what were some of the things that you were trying to bring out with, when Walter speaks about obviously thinning out this tree, you did a beautiful job of refining this tree. What were some of the things that you were trying to achieve, and also some of the challenges of trying to do that?
So originally the tree was very upright, and my favorite part of the tree is the wonderful movement up near the top, and that's what we couldn't see at all. This was just a big ball of foliage, and so we were all very much on the same page. We wanted to see all of this interest up high up in this area. And if there's a lot of interest in a tree, I don't think of that as being a result of something growing upright. And so we decided to bring it over a little bit. And we talked about there are a lot of options for bringing it quite a ways over, and I think many different options are valid. It's more a matter of what's the story you want to tell. And so we kind of agreed on a spot that was a little bit over, but not too far over, to at least give the basic trunk some kind of movement.
The big advantage of these stones is that you don't have to worry too much about what exactly is the front while you plant the tree on, because you can move the thing around. If that were in a pot, the front is decided by the edge of the pot, right? Now, since it's a stone, this can be the front, this can be the front, this can be the front. That's pretty cool. We even can, instead of a block, we can put a stone underneath, hopefully with the same color. Nobody notices that stone, and then we put it in position. That's a wonderful advantage of these rock plantings.
I would like to ask both of you, where do you see the tree continuing to develop in refinement over the next several years, starting with Jonas? Where is your vision for where this tree would continue on 5, 10, 20 years on down the road?
I think a couple things come to mind. One is, I think there's a lot more opportunity for adding more complexity to the design in the foliage. Right now we have little tufts of foliage kind of as a place marker for where the future silhouette will be. And what I'd like to see is a little more complexity, and that would require a lot of fine wiring. And so, again, the goal for now is really to put the big branches in place, and I left extra foliage on just so it would keep growing. But over time, giving it more complexity. The other thing is we have to make sure that we still have a window into the more interesting parts of the tree. And I would really like to grow out some of these lower branches out a little bit more to make the design a little more three-dimensional and to provide a beautiful backdrop for the really interesting deadwood in the center of the design.
I think it's pretty much as I want it anyway. Yes, you could continue doing more, but I'm quite happy if that's it. If it never gets any better, that's fine with me. I don't want over-refined trees. That's my personal take. I want this still a credible, genuine, real tree. Compared to a bonsai, which doesn't even try to do that. A bonsai is a styled tree. It's an artificial, a well-done artificial thing. And this is, in my eyes, supposed to be a real tree. And real trees are not over-styled. So anyway, for me, that's fine. And even if that grows denser again, I will cut out again, because if people will say, now these can fill out. No, not with me. The minute they fill out, I will cut them out again. Okay, so I must say I'm quite happy with what I have. This wire will have to go off. This is only for safety purposes, because some storm might blow this over and then the tree would fall off. That would be a disaster. Otherwise, I'm very happy, and I'm very grateful for having you here and put you to work.
But the other thing I was going to point out is one thing that's really interesting about the tree is even though the overall movement is going off to the left, notice that all the apical branches are actually all pointing to the right, and that the largest branch is off to the right. Now the tree paid a price for growing in that direction, and that's why all this died off. So we're actually telling a little bit of a complex story. What is it that has made the tree possibly fall halfway off the rock in one direction, but most of the branches structurally are all off to this opposite direction, even though they pay a price for it? So was this price, if we're going to say there's a prevailing wind this way, is that why they're growing that way? And that the sun's over there, but then why would this die? I don't totally have the answer to that, but I love that we're getting a little bit of back and forth in the design, and it makes it kind of sit a little off kilter, which gives it a more natural feeling and makes it look older. I think it works well with the age of the tree.
It's the mystery of nature.
Yeah, I like it.
So for me, that's perfectly fine. I'm really very happy to have this tree, and this will be connected with your name in the future, okay?
That works for me.
So, and surprise? Okay, super. Thank you very much.
It was a treat. Thank you.